What's up, guys? Tim Little. Welcome back to Tactical Bass. In today's video, I have some tips for you for one of my favorite wintertime finesse techniques. We're talking strolling. Strolling is not a new technique. It's been around for a long time, right? The Demiki rig, this guy right here, moping, jig and minnow, whatever you want to call it, the technique has been around for a long time. I can remember back 8-10 years ago, I did a wintertime fishing video on the Demiki rig, right? How effective just sitting there and shaking this bait vertically above suspended fish or fish just off bottom worked extremely well in the cold weather months. The cold water, wintertime, it just works extremely well. Yes, with the advancements of electronics and such, it's kind of been the most popular technique of any technique in bass fishing. It's really taken over, mid-strolling, Demiki rigging, jig and minnow, mooching, right? All of those different names are for basically that same technique, right? Basically shaking a minnow. And this works extremely well. All summer long, we were throwing big guys. We are throwing that guy right there. That's the Demiki armor shad. That's the big one, right? The depths, the Sakamata shad. The Crush City freeloader, caught so many big ones on that. And then the Hog Farmer, the Stroll shad. Those were my go-to baits during the summertime. Again, I'm fishing these more aggressively, right? I'm doing more of the hop up and then shake, 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 right? Shake, 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 reel, 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 shake, shake, shake as that bait's coming to me. More like a cat and mouse game, if you will, with some of those fish. And again, you don't need electronics to fish this technique. This works extremely well with or without electronics. You throw it in your favorite locations, your favorite wintertime locations where those fish are kind of like more lethargic, kind of hanging out. It's just a technique that, for whatever reason, works better than a little paddle tail swim bait this time of the year. I'm going to show you guys the bigger guys right now so you can see them a little bit better, but it's that forked tail, kind of that straight bait, kind of that forked tail, or just kind of a do-nothing tail, right? That thing's just down there doing this. Doesn't matter how aggressive you get with that bait. That shaking gives this whole body roll movement to that bait, right? So that's what is different than having a paddle tail swim bait, having that little tail kicking back there, having that whole bait going side to side to side to side, just makes all the difference in the world. These fish have seen paddle tail swim baits for decades, and having a little Demiki rig sit there and shaking above their head, having that little tail dance, just those fish just come up and just have to eat it. Like, it's just a technique that works. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Like I said, all summer long, all fall long, Matt and I were blasting giants on the freeloader, the big Demiki armor shad, and the Sakamata shad. I mean, you couldn't even get these things. These things were like gold on the internet. And again, it's just that straight tail or forked tail minnow doing that side-to-side action. Like I said earlier, in the summertime, I'd throw this thing out. I wasn't actually using a lot of my electronics. I was actually ledge fishing with this guy. Throw it out there, let it hit bottom, pop, pop, and then shake, 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 shake it as I'm reeling. And the fish would just engulf it, just load up. And big ones, 7, 8 pounders, 9 pounders. But wintertime, just like we talk about in a lot of our wintertime finesse techniques, now is the time to be really meticulous about your bait selection because of the action, right? We don't want a bait that's going to be super aggressive, super wide wobbling in the colder water. Just like we talk about when we're talking about crankbaits and speed cranking. There's a lot of great crankbaits on the market, but as you get into the wintertime, colder water, you want crankbaits that have a real tight action. And same thing with this technique right here. So we're going to talk about basically how to fish it, and then some of my favorite baits and heads as we switch or we transition into winter that will help put more fish in the boat for you. And I keep saying boat, but you guys, shore fishermen, if you're a kayak fisherman or a shore fisherman, shore-based angler, this technique works great as well. You know, you throw it out there, you don't have to let it hit bottom, and you're just working that rod tip as you're slowly reeling that bait back, and that is key. So it can be fish from the shore, it can be fish from the boat, kayak, wherever you want, but that guy works really well. So I just talked about it. So let's go ahead and show you how I like to work this bait. Let me get this all set up for you so I can still reel. Again, it's all about moving slow this time of the year. You know, we talk about speed cranking and all that stuff, but finesse fishing, just like drop shot fishing or throwing a Ned rig or a little finesse jig, these fish are going to have a ton of time to sit there and nose down at your bait, or look at your bait, look up at your bait if it's suspended, and investigate, right? Is that real? Is it not real? Do I want to eat it? You're not really getting these fish to react, right? You're just working slow. So again, throw it out there, depending on the depth of your fish. It's all in the wrist, right? I'm just shaking this thing just enough to get that rod tip going, and then I'm just shaking, almost like a vibration in the wrist, and then I'm just shaking and slowly reeling. The slower, the better. Again, you want this thing suspended horizontally right above their head, and they will come up and eat. A lot of times, you know, it's going to take a little while. Bass are curious creatures, and they'll see that thing up there, and you'll see them, especially with live, you know, you'll see them kind of, and then mosey on up. You're shaking, 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 and then they just eat it, right? Especially in the wintertime, they slow down. It's not like they just shoot up and eat it like they do in the summer and the fall. But again, it's that real kind of shake with the wrist, get that rod tip going, just the rod tip, and then that slow, steady reel, okay? So that's kind of how you, that's how you fish it, especially in the wintertime. In the summertime, like I was talking about earlier, throw it out there. I was actually fishing on bottom on ledges. I'd pop, and that bait goes doo-doo, shoots off, and then I'm shaking and I'm reeling, almost taking that bait away from them, if you will. But wintertime, completely different way to fish it. So fish slow. Now, with that said, we talked about some of my favorite summertime baits. Wintertime baits are completely different. I'm going to downsize. I'm going more natural colors. Summertime, aggressive fish, you can get away with those really bright colors. Really bright colors. Again, wintertime, they're going to sit there and stare and investigate. I like to go with more of your kind of your bait fishy colors. Okay, that's that scroll shad by Hog Farmer paired up with a guppy head. A lot of the heads I was using in the wintertime or in the summertime were bigger. Again, I'm fishing faster, I'm fishing deeper. I want those baits to get down. In the wintertime, we're talking itty bitty baits, itty bitty heads, allows us to work that bait slower, okay? And that is what is key. So some of my favorite baits, this guy right here, that is the 3-inch Hog Farmer Spunk Shad, right? Downsized package, really light head. We're gonna talk about heads in just a second, but that's that guy right there, the range roller. Comes in some extremely light heads. With those lighter heads, it allows you to effectively shake that bait, work that bait in that strike zone or in that key area, and it just keeps that bait suspended, almost like fishing a fly under a bobber, the float and fly technique, right? We all know that technique works extremely well in some of the coldest winter conditions. Same type of deal. You're suspending that bait up above that fish, and you're just getting that bait to go side to side to side to show kind of that flickering or that movement. Again, not a lot of paddle tail kick, but you still have some vibration in that tail right there. So a little bit of movement, looks ultra realistic, and when it's suspended above that fish's head, they have to investigate, they have to eat. So that guy right there, that's that 3-inch, that's the spunk shad by Hog Farmer. Another really great one. This is the mooch minnow by Crush City. Has a little bit of a different tail on there. Can you guys see that? See that right there? A little bit of a different tail. Has a little bit of a kind of a twist, not like a paddle tail, but again, this bait right here is ultra resilient, durable, high float. It works extremely well. A lot like, this isn't a Lastech, but it's a lot like that from Z-Man. But that mooch minnow, again, it's a smaller presentation, a slower presentation. Have that paired up with an 1/8 ounce Dirty Jigs guppy head. So 1/8 ounce head right there. That's a killer little presentation. Of course, we talked about this just a little bit ago. This is the actual Damiki rig. Got the Damiki head and the armor shad, the little forked tail. This thing works really good if you're fishing along bluff walls. Again, you don't need live sonar for any of these baits. This one works really good if you're sitting there and just shaking on bluff walls or above a rock pile. Having that head like that right there has kind of that gliding fall. And when it does hit bottom, it sits just like that, right? It doesn't sit, doesn't fall over. But the Damiki rig has been around for a long, long time. So that is a staple for my wintertime jig and minnow game. And then this little guy right here, that is the Yamamoto. That is the scope shad. You can see that this bait has a little bit, it's not perfectly round or cylinder. It's kind of offset, almost like a heart shape. You guys can see that. Again, that helps with that body roll and that destabilization. But again, we're talking ultralight heads, so we can sit there and shake this thing right above those fish and get them to finally come up and eat. But that guy right there, that's the Yamamoto scope shad. It's a 3-inch, and that bait is a winner. That is electric shad. You guys know that I love electric shad. That color is great in just about every bait. And then last but not least, this is a new one. It's Great Lakes Finesse. Where do I have those at? Great Lakes Finesse, these guys right here. This is the hover minnow. Okay, this guy right there. What's different about this bait, paired with its own head, this guy right here, the line tie, if you can see, is up on the nose of the bait. So it's not back on the head, it's up on the face of the bait. And then this bait itself has a cupped belly. Can you guys see that all right? I'll overlay some baits for you guys. But what this setup allows, when it's rigged with its head, a lot like the Damiki rig, one, it sits flat on bottom. Okay, so that's key. You guys know that when you drop these baits to bottom, sometimes those fish will just slowly come down and look at them. You can give them 1 or 2 hops and they eat it. But this thing, this bait right here, having that cupped belly, allows this thing to do kind of this like glide down, which you guys know I love the death spiral. I love that kind of change of direction during the fall. And again, everything is critiqued under a magnifying glass in the wintertime, right? These bass can sit there. They can choose to eat your bait or not. We've all sat there and played with jerkbait cadences, right? Rip, 10, 20, 30, 45 seconds. Rip, rip, let it sit there, right? Those fish just kind of, and then eat. Same thing, you're slowing down. So everything can be just inspected that much longer, that much more, right? So that's why you want the ultra realistic colors. You want the real natural kind of presentation. And then on that fall, you want that change of direction or that glide, that death spiral that works extremely well. But that guy right there, the Great Lakes Finesse, that's the hover minnow, again, paired up specifically with their head, works really well. So now that we're talking about heads, again, you can go out and you can throw an 1/8 ounce guppy head. That's an awesome, awesome head that will work in most of these. 1/0 hook, 1/8 ounce. But if you need to go a little bit lighter, that's where these guys really kick in. The range rollers, okay? Owner range roller. This guy right here, that's down to a 1/96 of an ounce, 0.3 grams with a number 2 hook. This guy right here, 3/32, okay? That 1/0 hook, so a little bit bigger hook than that number 2. But again, you're downsizing your bait, you're downsizing your profile, your presentation, because you're slowing down, okay? But this guy right here paired up, this guy, that's that scope shad. That's paired up to that one's actually a 3/32 ounce, okay? This guy right here, I'm gonna look it up because I didn't remember what this one was. That's a 1/4 ounce head. If you need to go lighter, you can. But downsizing your presentation, downsizing your baits, your heads, allows you to sit there and shake that bait above that fish's head, and allows those fish to kind of be intrigued, and they're not gonna move quickly. You know, we talk about it when we're talking about throwing big swim baits in wintertime, right? You have drawing power. With these little baits, you're going to the key area, whether it's a transition on a creek channel with some rock, or a main lake point with some rock, or maybe it's some brush out off of a main lake point. Those key areas where you know those fish are at, and you sit there and shake that, those fish are gonna come up and eat. You guys can see this technique, I mean, it's really exploded. You guys can see that's my stroll shad or strolling head bag. Just has all of my different heads in it. But again, if you're looking for more of a vertical presentation, straight up and down, like we used to do on 2D sonar, traditional 2D sonar that's been around for a long, long time. You know, we've talked about video game fishing for decades, right? Either throwing a heavy spoon or some kind of float and fly, or the Demiki rig. If you're more vertically fishing, I like to go with that Demiki rig, again, paired with that armor shad and that head right there. If you're casting out and you're working it slow, and then kind of transitioning into letting that thing fall and change depths, change areas in the water column, that's when I like to go with that Great Lakes Finesse guy. And then I switched it up between these 4 baits. Basically, that little mooch minnow, that thing has won a ton of money in tournaments this year. That's a great little bait. Again, high float with that real durable material. And this guy right here, the little 3-inch spunk shad, works great on little tiny on jig heads. Works extremely well for this technique. And then that little scope shad by Yamamoto. Those are my go-tos. If you do want to step it up just a little bit in size, again, don't be afraid to throw that 4-inch stroll shad. Slender profile, a little bit longer body. But guys, that is, it's a must this time of the year. All year, the last couple years, Matt and I, we spent a ton of time learning the strolling technique. You know, we've talked about it in previous videos. I was doing the hover strolling, you know, pouring my own heads and stuff a long time ago, and just playing around with these real finessey techniques. Again, they're not new, just kind of revamped, if you will. So many different baits. Bait companies have brought baits out to the market in the last year or two, and we keep getting better and better ones. But those guys right there, guys, that little mooch minnow by Crush City, the little 3-inch spunk shad by Hog Farmer, the Great Lakes Finesse, the hover minnow, and the Yamamoto scope shad are all killer baits. And then paired up with your favorite little swim bait head will work great. Again, work slow. Really watch that rod tip. Like I said, it's more of that shake in the wrist. It's not like you're working your elbow. It's just a shake in your wrist, just enough to get that bait vibrating like this, right? That's all you want. That thing just vibrating like that. You don't need the real big side to side like we did in the summertime. You just want that thing just flickering, just twitching, and then just slow on the handle turns. Again, cold water, this technique really shines. Guys, as always, we appreciate the support. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please leave those down below in the comment section. I will try to get those as soon as possible. We appreciate the support. If you like this video or learned something from it, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you guys on the next video.